bm08272019. This is a regular special meeting of the Board of Trustees. The time is now 6 p.m. Let the record reflect that we do have a quorum of trustees present, and I call this meeting to order. This afternoon, Ms. Johnson will lead us in the pledges, and Mr. Rector will lead us in the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for just allowing us to be here this evening for this special call meeting. We thank you, Lord, for the blessings of Mr. Cheryl Stanberry, our superintendent, and all those who are involved with the process of our budget. Thank you, Lord, for just giving them what it takes to get the job done and have it prepared for us this afternoon. And we ask all that we ask in Jesus' name. It's for your sake we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, David. Veronica. I believe everybody signed up for public comments. All right, we'll jump straight into our public meeting this afternoon. Agenda item number 3 is the 2019-2020 proposed budget and tax rate. Ms. Cook, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, well, here we are. It's been a long road. Appreciate your patience and the good conversations we've had in our budget workshops. And Cheryl and I are both very glad to be at this day to bring to you what we're looking at for our budget for this coming school year. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl so she can share the information with you and comments.
In your board packet, we included our estimated revenue, which is the same estimate that we gave you at our last workshop. It compares last year to this year, what our estimate is for this year and the changes. And on I think the first workshop that we had, we pointed out what the legislature did to our finance template, and that we showed you the last 2 workshops. So if you had any questions or any more questions, we're still on version 7. So if there is another change, I just put looking. The last change didn't change our numbers any, they were just clarifying. So bottom line, with using the 1568 ADA, we should have a total income of local and state income of $16,359,491. So did y'all have any questions on that?
Are these tier 1 grants automatic? Are they for sure all the grants?
Tier 1, that is when we put in our students into classes. You've heard of PEAMS. Okay, each child, every class they take is coded, and whatever they're enrolled in, it generates these numbers. So
Falls into a grant type funding?
yes,
Okay.
under tier
Okay.
1. And we're required, most of these, I don't put it in here, but we're not actually required to spend 100% of those grants. As long as we spend 55% of those, we're in compliance. But we spend the whole dollar amount. So yes, the new dyslexia allotment, we're still getting information on how we need to spend that. They're still writing the rules on some of these new ones. In the small mid-size allotment, that additional line under tier 2, the second line, we're being led to believe that's to help offset our tax decrease in the tax revenues. And again, these numbers are live and moving, and we're going to be monitoring them all year long and maybe the possibility is very strong that we would be amending this budget as they continue to write new rules and we get better numbers. So with that being said,
Any other questions?
And we could still grow by our students, the number of students.
the 1568 enrollment,
Enrollment.
we carried, every time we talked, I had to go back and look and estimate how many bodies and seats does that mean. And so I finally just put it on here. If we achieve a 1650 enrollment, and if our attendance rate is 95%, it comes in at 1568.88. So that number is alive and moving, and our principals are very aware that attendance, and as well as y'all know, incentives are trying to be built to encourage the kids to come. And
Where are we as a team?
As of today, we're at 1573 enrollment, and that's not where I hope to be today when we're sitting here. But you have to remember, every year when we start school, yesterday we were at 1533. We had 40 more kids come just today. And I know for sure of one family of 4 that was brand new that we didn't know anything about. Historically, our enrollment all the way into the second week of school past Labor Day increases dramatically each day. So don't panic. We're still feeling very hopeful. We're still hearing good things.
Only second day.
You know, I would have preferred, yes, to come in today and tell you we're at 1,650 students sitting in those seats. But as of today, that we don't have all of them. We still have, we had 170 no-shows that were in the system. We only have received 70 T-Rex requests for to go to other districts. So we've got about 100 students that are still in our system that are unaccounted for. So we're sitting right now, as of this very moment, we're 77 shy of what we projected, just on the second day of school. Remembering that we had 40 kids show up today that didn't come yesterday.
So we need 1650 or 1615?
1,650.
50.
Ms. Cook, can you comment on what we're doing to locate those other 100 students? What point do we start getting on the phone and making?
Oh, they've been doing that. They've been calling, they called beforehand to see who hasn't registered, and then I just talked to Diane right before the meeting, and they'll be reaching out again to see where those are. And then remember, we still have new ones coming in.
Cheryl, can you talk to the line item on page 2, your federal income? Choose to have loan interest. My recollection is correct. Isn't that the loan that we took out for, was it the lighting that we did across the district?
Yes.
So we still have allocated money that's earning interest?
Okay. The loan interest is not something that we're paying, but we have to book it as our income. The investors who actually invested in that are getting credits, tax credits, so we have to book it as interest income.
And how long does that go through?
I don't have the year that we're paying that off. It was a 20-year note. We have probably at least 15 more years to pay.
So just for public information on the actual budget, we're showing 16,134.91, and then on the total federal income, another 229,000, so we're at 16,359,491. And then our budget is at 16,558,072, so we're looking at a deficit budget of 198,581.
Okay. The 198 deficit is because in our planning to have those 1650 students plus more, our enrollment was really heavy in pre-K, K, first grade. So that 198 represents 3 teachers that we haven't hired, that we could possibly need. So we went ahead and built it into the budget instead of coming back to you teacher by teacher saying, we need more money. So if our numbers do not get higher than the 1650 and we do not have to hire those teachers, then we could have a balanced budget. So this budget is, we're just trying to do the worst case scenario.
So prior to some of the workshops, we had talked about the pay increases. And that if worst case scenario would have been, we were talking about with the 3% increase, that we could pay in 2 ways. We could either take a heavier deficit budget and approve that, or we could go with a more rosy plan of the ADA of 1658. Could somebody please help me remember? I thought we were at like a 300,000 deficit at that point.
We were, you want to address, that was, a lot of that was due to some, well, I'll let you crunch the numbers, so.
In crunching the numbers, the way our system is, we still had employees, a position saved in the computer for us to hire that person. And as the new person gets hired and gets input, the space holder needs to be deleted. So that's what we've been doing, is making sure that every employee that got hired knew that our placeholder actually had been deleted. So there was a little over $100,000 where we got to reduce the budget, and tweaking back and forth, we were able to bring that back down to almost a balanced budget.
Do you do their salary levels? Is that what you're trying to?
With-
Hire someone at one level?
Like, we had a first grade teacher that left the district, but we know we had to replace that person. So we keep their salary in the system so we'll know that money's there. And then when that new person gets hired and their input, if I ran a report before they took the old person out, it's double budgeted. So we've been cleaning up, and I had Tammy and Pam one day, they went line by line to make sure, okay, that space holder deleted because the person's in. And when that was being done, it was like $118,000 of double budgeting. So that was one way we got to clean it up. And then there was a space holder where we had not hired a teacher, but yet we want to have that available in case we need it. So we left it in, and that's when the dust settled, it came out to be that we had the 3 positions open.
And
So
through
they're
this
still being
process,
budgeted.
because of the unknowns that we had with the templates changing, all that, so much time was being spent on trying to plug those numbers in and find those numbers, that it was not until after the second budget workshop that they were able to go in and say, okay, now this is where we are with salaries, this is what we're looking at, we're adding, and so they could plug that in, and then, like she said, go line by line and see, make sure we cleaned it up. So after all of that figuring was done, we were very pleased to come. You know, I loved it when I was going to Cheryl's office. She said, it's looking better and better. And then, you know, I said, well, that's good. That's what I want to hear. And then her and I sat and had a long discussion and debated back and forth. Do we go ahead and take a balanced budget still with so many unknowns and just leave that potential? Because, you know, the initial numbers coming at us were, we're going to have an explosion of students. And if that happens at certain grade levels, especially the lower level, we're going to have to hire more teachers. So after our discussion, we felt it was best to err on this side of full, you know, put it all out there and say, here is worst case scenario that we could going into this. It was hard for both of us, I think, especially me, because I really wanted to be a black number we brought in. So instead of that nice little red one. But we, this has just been the oddest year I've ever been a part of trying to build the budget. And I went over to the superintendent's meeting last week, and listening to what all of them were saying. All of them are feeling the same way. You know, we're kind of trying to come at this, do the best we can, make the best projections, put placeholders in there for what the future might hold, realizing that we don't want to come back, because that's not good business management normally, to come back and amend budgets over and over again. But we are already being told by TASBO that be prepared and prepare your board for that.
So this budget that we're looking at is with those increases we spoke about last week?
Yes. That includes all the salary, and the other thing we were still concerned about was what the TRS piece was going to look like for us. And you can speak to that. I think in the end, that wasn't as large as we thought it was going to be.
In TRS, we've been paying it's very complicated. I'm not even going to try to explain the whole formula, but they changed the rate that we pay in on teacher salaries and all employee salaries. There's a piece for teachers, though, that we pay 6.8% in TRS. This year, the legislature, they raised it to 7.5%.
What we're responsible
Of
for?
what our payments, so that expense was going to rise. But what they took away from the 6.8%, there is a piece where we pay all of our teachers above state minimum. There's a calculation that we have to do. You take the teacher's salary and you subtract the state minimum from that, and the difference is what, in the past, we would have to multiply it by 1.1% to elevate it, and then multiply it by the 6.8. They took away the 1.1% out, so when they did that, I ran two estimates, old law and new law, and there was almost no difference between what we're actually paying in. So, because they did raise the state minimum. And actually, the calculation from here on out should be simpler because they took that one step out. We were nervous about it, but when you see it in black and white, it did simplify things, so I'm not so scared of that anymore. I also included the budget, actually what it looked like last year, and compared it to this year. And by law, we have you approve the budget by function, but we wanted you to see instruction how the different object codes changed in payroll, contracted services, supplies. And so we're comparing all those categories from last year to this year to show how they changed. The grand total, all of the payroll costs are because of the increases in pay. And then we tweaked the budget. In function 13, payroll costs actually went down. What we've been doing in the past is we've been trying to have our own people do staff development. And this past year, we moved that monies down to contracted services, and we've been hiring that in and bringing consultants in to try to lead us to a new direction. But throughout the whole budget, that's what's going on, is recoding. And I did try to put an explanation off to the right. There was one employee that we took out and moved that person's salary into a whole nother function.
Anybody have any questions? So just for public information, our proposed budget that we had during the workshops, changes that have happened since then really puts us in a better position financially where we were at, even
Yeah.
with our increases, we're closer to breaking even and not having a deficit budget, so.
And I went to Cheryl this afternoon because it's been making me kind of nervous because I really wanted to be able to come here. So we've got 1,650 kids already. So I said, okay, what's the worst case scenario on that? If we didn't get another student and we sat here at 1,573, being that we basically put $198,000 in, you know, that's for 3 salaries, that if we don't have these extra students come, we will not need to hire those teachers. And so with that ADA being lower, and then having that kind of a cushion, I guess you might say, or what we were hoping for the growth, it would probably put us about 287, around 300,000. It would cause us to have about a $300,000 deficit budget. That's worst case scenario. If not another student came in, and this is what we stay right where we are today. I just cannot imagine that happening. I cannot imagine that from day 1 to day 2, we had 40 extra students, and then we never have another student walk through our doors. Especially with all the growth, the excitement, the fact that there's 100 students out there that put their name in the hat, and where are they? Maybe they just going to vacation another week. And then just the talk we're hearing of people moving in, apartments starting to open back up, houses being built. So Cheryl and I both talked about it. I said, am I crazy? And she said, no, we both feel very confident that this could actually turn out to put us balanced in the end once the dust settles after the end of the year. And what I'm hoping for is not just that, but we actually end up having a little money that can, you know, put back in fund balance and start, you know, getting that back where it needs to be. So, but we need the students to come. I mean, that's what it's all hinging on. And also the students, if we go over this, what we have projected, then we get more money from the state too, in our calculation. So, you know, do I like bringing you something that's kind of like, if this happens and that? No, I do not. It makes me very uncomfortable. But this is where we are. I feel very confident that we have beat this thing every way we can and looked at it every way. And that today, we feel that this is the best plan of action and the proposal that we're bringing to.
I think that's one question, I'm sorry. And I can't find it, because every time I turn my pad, my thing goes the direction like that. So I know I saw it. A safety piece, there was a safety section in here somewhere. It was a small amount.
In the estimated revenue.
Yeah, is that for our potential program that we're looking into for the training of the staff?
The school safety allotment for $15,000?
Yes. Is that for the?
Actually, I haven't seen the rule on what we're supposed to spend that money on yet.
For which program? SRP program? Well, this allotment is attached to, the rules are still being developed on what we're actually supposed to ensure we spend this on. So it could go to part of that. Of course, we also have Title IV funds that we use, that we've been currently using that's separate from this, that we've been funding a lot of that. So, when I went to the superintendent's meeting, they were just telling us like some of these things that have been allocated to us. We're going to have like our first webinars like September 19th.
Okay, so this wasn't our personal allocation?
No,
This was something
this
the state
is
mandated?
from new legislation
Okay.
that is going for school safety. And so once we dive into exactly what the expectations are, because they will have very strict expectations that you must do this, this, and this, and we will make sure, and it could be that because, you know, we're kind of ahead of the game. I applaud all of you. Before I ever even arrived here, y'all were already moving on so much of these safety pieces. So we may be ahead of the game on some of that, so we can just enhance it to another level. So that's something Mr. Bennett and I will be working on to ensure that, that we just use these funds very wisely to make it as safe as possible at every campus.
Thank you, sorry.
No, good question.
No, I was just gonna say, I appreciate the transparency on the budget, you know, worst case scenario. It is what it is, so it's best for us to see it in black and white, you know, and be prepared, rather than be blindsided.
We want to give you a rosy
after
picture
Labor Day.
to bring you a nugget of dust.
Yeah.
later.
Any other comments? If there are other comments, open up for public comments at this time. We have no public comments.
Did you want to discuss the tax rate? I'll say what that was to you.
I'm going to do that when we
Okay,
approve
I'm
it.
sorry.
Okay. Yes, sir. I just did ask for public comment. Okay. So on the notice of public meeting to discuss the budget and proposed tax rate, last year's tax rate for maintenance operations was $1.17. The interest and sinking fund was 0.19. The proposed tax rate and approved tax rate for last year was 0.097 and 0.019. Is that correct, Cheryl?
The proposed tax rate for this year is 0.197.
But that's what it was last year also. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we haven't changed the tax rate. Go ahead.
Well, there's two components to that $1.17.
Okay.
Our approved tax rate was $1.04, and last year we added the 13 pennies.
Right.
So that's being taken away. And then the legislature is compressing the tax rate once again, so it's dropping from $1.04 down to our proposed maintenance operation rate of 0.97, 97 cents on the dollar.
So 0.97 is a new tax rate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are there any comments from the public? We don't have any comments from the public, so I'll move on. Next agenda item is to consider approve the 2019-2020 budget, which we just discussed. Are there any questions on the budget? If there are no questions, you have a motion to approve the 2019-20 budget. Have a motion by Ms. Diostas, a second by Ms. Johnson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is to consider and approve the 2019-20 tax rate. Which the maintenance and tax rate is 0.97 after dropping it, correct?
Yes.
And then what was approved by the voters was the 0.19, is that correct? Am I reading this right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the tax rate as discussed?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Johnson, a second by Mr. Rector. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is to convene an executive session as authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551.001, concerning any and all purposes permitted by the Act, Section 551.074, discussing personnel, new hire, Director of Food Services. Time is now 6:29, and we'll convene an executive session. Let the record reflect the time is now 7:08. The board is reconvened in open session to act on any items from executive session. At this time, no action will be taken. The time is now 7:08. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.